right? I want to talk about Georgia's offense and what happened there first and foremost, because I think a lot of people had questions. Look, if you watched that football game yesterday and saw Clemson struggling on the offensive side of the football, you're like, oh, like, hey, duh. Like, they had 3 games last year of under 300 yards of total offense, or I think maybe 4 or 5 of them last year. They were not great offensively. I think a lot of you kind of maybe expected that. I think even when we did our score predictions Tuesday before the game, we said nobody predicted Clemson to score more than 17 points. So I think we all expected some type of rock fight offensively from Clemson. I don't think we expected Georgia to kind of stagger out of the gates like they did for an extended period of an entire half. So I want to talk about why and what happened, right? Because I think a lot of people, when Georgia struggles offensively, you just assume it's either play calling or lack of execution or you're getting beat, whatever it is. You're probably wondering, why are we only scoring 6 points? Why does it look constipated? Why does it look stagnated on the offensive side of the football? I thought the first half went down exactly offensively for Georgia how I thought it would, but differently, okay? And I'll explain that, right? I went into this football game thinking Georgia was going to struggle offensively to start because I thought, hey, look, like Clemson is a man-to-man pressure football team defensively. They're going to play a lot of man coverage, going to play or bring a lot of pressure, which means, like, first as an offense, I have to identify how are they attacking me? In other words, where do they think they're going to win their pressure battles? Where are they bringing the pressure? Who are they identifying as the donkey, if you will, on this 4-horseman offensive line? Is there a donkey? Is there someone that they feel like they can attack defensively? If so, let's identify that first and foremost and provide help there. All right, and then the other question is, hey, which one of these one-on-ones outside are we going to most win? Right? If they're going to play a bunch of man defense on the in the defensive backfield, we got to figure out which one of these guys we can beat. Sometimes that takes a little bit of time. If you remember last year, South Carolina was one of these football games for Georgia. They go into the football game thinking they're going to roll the ball out and beat the shit out of the Gamecocks. It's raining a little bit, but South Carolina's defense comes out, plays a bunch of man, plays a bunch of pressure, and it kind of takes Georgia a good 2 quarters to figure out who they're identifying as the weak link, right? Who are they going to attack? And then things started to open up and become a little bit more explosive. But that's what I was preparing for. I think that's what Georgia was preparing for on the offensive side of the football. That's not what they got. In fact, when we spoke to Carson Beck this week, I asked him, Carson, who are they? Who is their philosophy as a defense? He said straight up, they are a man pressure team. I was like, all right, well, you're going to prepare for a man pressure team. They walk out immediately on Saturday. Clemson's playing soft zone. The Clemson lived in cover 3. I'm going to have to go check the tape to like really confirm it. But when you watched it from the field level, it was very obvious. Clemson's playing a bunch of soft zone. Something that they do not do. So it took an entire half to kind of identify, hey, what are they doing? What are they doing defensively? They're doing something we didn't necessarily prepare for. Get into the halftime, make adjustments, look at what Kirby called the pictures, right? Look at what they are doing defensively, and then design a game plan. So what did they do coming out in the second half? What'd you see? You saw a bunch of Dovers, you saw a bunch of mesh concepts, and you saw a bunch of flood as well. Saw a bunch of into the boundary. Arian Smith's 30-yard reception on the opening drive of the second half. That's flood. How do you beat cover 3? You run flood. You run 3 guys into a zone where they only have 2, right? They only have a corner and a safety. So there were obvious signs of something where Georgia's offense saw something that they did not expect and then responded and made adjustments as a coaching staff. All right. So I give a real hat tip, all right, to an offensive coaching staff there for Mike Bobo and that bunch. Now, my question, okay, would be, why did Clemson do this? What? Because I'm going to be honest with you. There is no way in hell I'm playing soft zone against Carson Beck the rest of his career. Like, even when he gets to the league, I'm not doing this shit. You're telling me I've got a 6'5", 230-pounder who, like, wants to throw with his feet in the ground? This guy wants to throw with clean pockets. He wants to make easy decisions. He wants to process. This guy does not want to extend. He does not want to create. That's not his best abilities. His best abilities are right here and right here. Okay, when he's most consistent here and when he's most consistent here, you are not beating him. He's very, very much so Peyton Manning, Tom Brady-esque in this sense where I am not going to allow either of those individuals to just say, hey, we got 4 quarters of zone today. Let's just find where the weak spots are. Dude, he found London Humphreys on that drag route so damn clean. Look, both the safeties and linebackers off, looking straight down the field. Everybody bailed out. It was damn near a no-look pass if you go back and watch that on Saturday afternoon, where he throws it across his body, hits London Humphreys right out in front of his face, runs for 45 yards afterwards, because he just, with his eyes and everything else, and his body language and everything else, just took all the defensive backs and all the linebackers up out of the picture and then hit that drag route. It's just, I'm not going to allow you to do this. I'm not going to allow you to just say, hey, they're playing 3, they're playing 4, they're playing 6, because there is no disguising coverages. Pre-snap, the read is one read. He's going to identify it. He's going to know what you're playing. If you change it post-snap, he's damn sure smart enough to see it. Okay, so I just don't know why they chose this game plan other than one of two things. One, Clemson didn't think they could cover you, which is pretty daunting. Like, if Clemson doesn't think you can cover you, Clemson thinks they can cover everybody. Clemson tries to play man coverage against that 2019 LSU team. Clemson thinks they can man anybody. If Clemson doesn't think they can man you, you must have really, really good weapons. All right, at least for that defensive staff to be scared of you, or they were hurt. Shelton Lewis, their starting corner, was out of this football game. All right, so, but they still had an NFL corner in Avion Terrell on the other side, and Troy Stellato is no damn scrub either. I thought he played relatively competitively. I was very bamboozled, okay, by the defensive game plan from Clemson. I didn't like what they did. I thought they strayed away from their defensive philosophy in a football game where they were relatively outmatched from a skill set standpoint anyways. So not only are we going to do what we don't do, we're not going to do it as well as we normally do. I thought it was a relatively decent, a relatively bad game plan from a defensive philosophy standpoint, but I can justify it because they were banged up. One thing I will tell you, that defensive line, they are real, but the team speed is a problem. The team speed is 100% a problem for those guys, and we'll talk about that here in just a little bit towards the end of this when we give you our overview. I'm very curious as to see what Clemson does moving forward in terms of a defensive philosophy as they get healthy. Do they go back to that really super hyper-aggressive style of defense and defensive philosophy that they normally do? I want to talk about this Georgia defense now on the other side of the football. First of all, going into this football game, okay, last year, we told you, Clemson led the nation in plays per game. Clemson ran 76.8 plays per game last year. Led the nation. You know how many offensive snaps they took on Saturday? 51. 51 offensive snaps. Now, Georgia got their ass off the field pretty relatively quickly on a lot of these possessions. However, that's a football team that squatted on it on the offensive side of the football. They did not play their game on the offensive side of the football. They want to be high pace, go. Even when we suck, okay, even when we're not good at it. Last year, they ran more plays than anybody in the country. They were 99th in the country in plays or yards per play. They were horrible in terms of offensive efficiency. However, they never strayed away from their game plan. They took rep after rep after rep after rep. Saturday afternoon, they squatted on it. Georgia made them play a totally different style of football on both sides of the ball. It looked like to me going into this football game, if you just gave me the game plan in a vacuum, if you said, hey, Brooks, on Thursday, if you gave it to me, you said, hey, Brooks, this is what Clemson's going to do. They're going to play a bunch of zone, they're going to play a bunch of soft zone, and on the offensive side of the football, they're going to run the ball 42 times and squat on the damn thing. I'm going to look at you and go, oh, shit, they're scared. Oh, my God, they're scared. And that's what they were. They called this game and designed this game as a coaching staff, in my opinion, like they were scared, like they were trying to play it close instead of trying to play it to win. All right, so that was a major problem on the offensive side of the football for Clemson. Even though this was the best defensive performance I think I've seen from Georgia in 2 years, maybe. Like, this was as dominant against a relatively decent defense, or offense rather, from Clemson that I've seen in a long, long time. All right. All that being said, they did not execute a really out of character game plan. And it's a long time. It's been a long time rather since I've seen Dabo. He's by nature hard-headed. They do what they do. They don't do the portal thing. They don't do the NIL thing. You know why? It's not, they do have a moral compass, don't get me wrong, but it's because he's hard-headed. He's got his own way of doing things. He does them the way he does them. They run their program the same way every single year. They have the same metrics of grading their roster every single year at Clemson. Yet you get into this game and you change everything. You change your identity defensively. You change your identity offensively. I don't know how he thought from a game plan's perspective he was going to go out and win that football game, in my opinion. Now, talk about the domination defensively for Georgia. We got people in the studio. How many tweets did you see about Georgia's quote-unquote safeties and how good they were? Go after the football game, I saw shitloads of them. Everybody talk about safety play. Oh my God, Georgia's safety's best in America. Malachi Starks, best safety in America. Guys, he was playing nickel. The dude was playing nickel yesterday. Did y'all not notice? He played a completely different position. He started the football game at safety. Ja'Cory Thomas at star. Dan Jackson at the other safety. 2 possessions in, they put KJ Bolden at safety. They roll number 24 down to nickel, and he has the best game I've seen a nickel defender have at Georgia. And I don't know. I don't know how long. The interception was insane. The amount of times Malachi Starks was around the football yesterday, it was like 75% of snaps, it felt like. They could not avoid him. At safety, you can get into 3-by-1, put him on the single side, and just, hey, 24 is over there. Let's stay the piss away from him. When he's playing nickel, there is no way to hide him. You can't run away from him. You can't, we're going to run left, and he's on the right side. Well, guess what? He's only 12 yards from the ball carrier, and he runs 4.4. And he's got great instincts. He was around the ball constantly yesterday. Constantly. And I've been advocating for this for years, of just saying, hey, I've watched a defense for years. Last year was the epitome of it. The year before was an epitome of it. In 2022, despite the fact that she had all the NFL talent in the world, I would argue most impactful football player in the critical football games was Javon Bullard at star. Matter of fact, he won your defensive MVP in almost every playoff game over the last 2 or 3 years, playing star. Last year, undeniable. Look at the stats. The most impactful football player was Tyke Smith. Led the team in tackles for loss, interceptions, pass deflections. The most impactful football player. Was he the best? No. But he played a position where they were going to 100% be around the football at all times. Here's just a novel idea. You got this dude named Malachi Starks that's really, really great. Why not put him at a position where he's going to impact almost every single play? And that's what happened on Saturday. And I know Jaylen Walker had a great game, and I'll talk to you about how I'm wrong about Jaylen Walker in a second. But I thought the ability to move Malachi Starks down to nickel, to play a true freshman at safety, and let that shark swim. Okay, we talked about it all offseason. I felt like at some point in this season, they were going to throw KJ Bolden into the field, into the equation, because sharks swim. That's what they do. And 5 stars by capita, if they do what this kid did during the spring and during fall camp, that some bitch is a shark, and he's going to swim. So they threw him out immediately. He makes a play on 3rd down. All right, tackles a 230-pound Phil Maffa, flips him up over his head, stands up, gives one of those, and it's like, boom, stamped right now. This guy's ready to play. He's on the field the rest of the game. Sorry, Ja'Cory Thomas. Sorry. But that dude swam immediately, which means he's playing. Okay, so I thought those 2 adjustments were huge, but I thought the MVPs of this football game, in my opinion, all right, were Nazir Stackhouse and Kristen Miller. Now, did they show up in the stat book? Probably not. But if you watched it on the field, they played tough. They played so damn tough. And here's the deal. No Xavier McLeod going into this football game. Warren Brinson goes down early in this football game. All right, and Jordan Hall's out in this football game. Those are 3 of the 5 that are going to rotate. So that left Kristen and Nas to play way more snaps than they probably ever have in their career, and they played extremely, extremely tough. You do not hold Clemson for 2.1 yards per carry without a strong interior defensive line, no matter how good Michael played, no matter how good Jaylen Walker played, no matter how stout the linebackers are. You do not hold that offense to that kind of rushing production with that thin of a defensive tackle room without those 2 dudes playing out of their mind, okay? And they had a great game. I thought it was worth bringing some attention towards that. I want to talk about how I was wrong about Jaylen Walker, okay? I had this segment, and I had this thought process say about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I sat here and I said, man, like, all right, so Chaz Chandler's returns, Michael Williams moving to Jack, Damon Wilson year 2, Sam Mpemba year 2. Sounds like this Quintavious Johnson guy's pretty damn good too. So like the Jack room felt really, really filled up. And then I went to the inside linebacker room and I was like, oh, well, shit, CJ Allen's probably going to play like an All-American this year. Samal Mondon's finally healthy. He played all year last year hurt, and I felt like was still a second-team All-SEC caliber football player. And, oh, damn, Raylan Wilson's in year 2. And, oh, shit, here comes Justin Williams and Chris Cole. And, oh, don't forget about that Troy Bowles guy. And I'm sitting here and I'm racking my brain. And I'm like, where is the area of growth for Jaylen Walker from a role standpoint? And what I failed to realize was he was so good that they were going to create one for him. Kirby Smart talked about it yesterday. Talked about Jaylen has forced our hand as a staff to become uncomfortable. You know what's really uncomfortable? Cross-training. Cross-training a kid. Cross-training a kid's really, really uncomfortable. As a coaching staff, as a defensive coordinator, identifying when to get Jaylen on the field and where and how, that's really, really difficult. Okay. And it also it forces you to be uncomfortable even during practice, because the kid's got to bounce around during practice between position coach and position coach. And not only does he have to be comfortable doing that, your coach has to be able to, oh, Jaylen's with us now. Let's focus on Jaylen and handle that in the midst of practice. And oh, by the way, it's not just practice. I saw them warming up differently with Jaylen yesterday. Jaylen last year, if my memory serves me, worked out with the inside linebackers pregame. That's all he did. He worked out with the inside linebackers. In pregame yesterday, in between his inside linebacker reps, guess what he was doing? Uzo was standing right next to him with a pair of mitts, and they were working hand fighting. It's just the little attentions to detail that are the reason why Georgia is who they are, okay? And it's stuff like that. All right, and I know everyone has these things, but it's every time with Georgia. It's always with they will not miss the small abilities to get better, the small chances to get better at any moment and any time. 6 tackles yesterday, 3 solos, I think 1.5 TFLs and 1.5 sacks. I'm wrong. This guy dumb. You good football. On to the next segment. What now? What now for both of these football teams? I'll tell you. Now, Roddy White had a really interesting tweet. I'm not going to paraphrase it. I thought Roddy did a terrible job of explaining what I'm about to explain to you, because he made it about race, and it ain't got to be about race. It's about team speed, okay? Cash Jones is fast. White, black, purple, or orange. Motherfucker can run. All right, Clemson, yeah, they got a bunch of white folk on the team, but the problem is team speed. They can't run. They cannot run. This was my problem with Peyton Page going to defensive end. This was my problem with their recruiting tactics and recruiting strategies year over year. They recruit a bunch of really smart football players. They recruit a bunch of really good men. They cannot run. They had a 280-pound TJ Parker playing defensive end. They had a 315-pound Peter Woods playing the other defensive end. I love Peter Woods. Peter Woods is going to play on Sundays for a long time as a 3-tech. He looked overwhelmed playing defensive end. Stronger than Ox, but not going to impact the football when he's 5 yards away from the ball and the quarterback gets rid of the ball in 2.5 seconds. It's just mathematically, it doesn't make sense. Team speed was a major, major problem for Clemson on Saturday. Go watch that replay of London Humphreys' 40-yard touchdown pass. Watch 24, their starting safety, get left in the ever-loving dust. By the way, not a race thing, white-on-white crime. Cooked that brother, cooked him, ran away from him like nobody's business. Team speed is the issue. Get faster, get faster. Talk about the portal be damned. Recruit better, okay? You didn't beat Georgia because you had a bunch of football players on the field that Georgia didn't want to take. You can't run with Georgia because you had a bunch of football players on the field from the state of Georgia that Georgia didn't take because they couldn't run. I have no idea. Flip to the other side of the football for Georgia moving forward. I have no idea what we are in store for, but it feels like something very, 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 very special. That's all I'm going to say. It feels like something very, very special. Because, by the way, I just talked 22 minutes about that football game and didn't even talk about the freshman that was the best football player in the game that just got there like 6 weeks ago in Nate Frazier.